Hello everybody, welcome back to my shed. I'm BC. Another fun-filled Saturday. You got to laugh at those sort of phrases. Today we'll be putting the lever indicator on this RMR cutter just to see if I did manage to get some clearance behind the cutting edge. I have some shaping work to do on the axle horns for the loco frames. Time to get back onto a bit of locomotive work. And we'll see what else I can rummage up around the shop to look at. Also, something I will be trying over the next couple of months is different grinding wheels on the tool and cutter grinder. I already have used with some success the 125 Luke Sharp cut-off wheels, supposedly 1 mil, but I find them to be 1.2 or 1.4 across the width, depending on how much they've been worn. They are a fantastic tool and cut-off wheel for taps and slot drills, and also for notching the end of cutters. Just have to be careful you don't load them up too much, but the performance has been really good. I've also started to use what's called a combination wheel. It is a cut-off, grinding and finishing wheel made by Blue Shark, and it's finished with very fine grit on the face, and you can see it's like an old motorbike clutch on the face here. It has abrasive pads. I'll be using that in some of the work. What I want in grinding wheel just isn't available in straight vitrified, so I'm branching out into using some of these. And also, this is another product that's used extensively in industry, especially in America. It's called a Rex cut wheel. It's a very high quality aluminium oxide in a cotton matrix and a urethane bond. Now, I've used them before on stainless steel extensively in industry in all shapes, and they perform very well. The cotton and urethane bond prevent the abrasive grain impinging onto the workpiece, so a 36 grit wheel grinds with a finish that you'd expect out of an 80. Now, this is a very unusual finishing wheel. It's flat, it has a reinforced backing, all of the abrasive grain is on the face of it, and I may try and use that on the flutes of larger taps just to see what we get. And that's almost a combination finish. It's an A54, so I'd say it's a mixture of 46 and 60 grit. So far I found it to be exceptional, and another reason I want to branch out into this type of wheel, getting small diameter type 1A1 straight grinding wheels in narrow, say 4 or 6 mil wheels, is very, very difficult, and you need wheels of that sort to get inside the flutes of taps or some cutters. If you try to use a big diameter cutter, you tend to want to run out onto the chuck before you finish grinding the flute. So if I can get this sort of product to work, it's readily available in many different descriptions and sizes out of the States, and the price is bloody reasonable, and they give a very, very good life, and it's safe because they're reinforced, so when I make a stuff up I don't get hurt. Okay, I'll now bring you in, set up the dial, lever indicator, and we'll see if I manage to get any clearance behind the cutter. And another way I often tell is just put a flat surface up on it, and already I can see that there is clearance there just by looking in behind the flat surface. Okay, bring you back when the indicator's on. Hello, we're back again. A little bit of a close-up. I had to take the GoPro out of circuit. I was using it with a microphone to try and get better audio, as I've had a lot of people saying, hey, we can't hear what you're bloody saying. Well, now you probably hear too much, but the old camcorder still gives me a much better close-up. So I hope you can pick out here. I've got the lever indicator, and I'm sorry I can't get around the other side. This place is just so cramped, but you'll see what happens. You can see the ball on the end of the lever there, and it's on the land I ground behind the cutting edge. And I'm pretty sure I've got it in the right orientation. If I rotate the cutter so the ball moves further back on the land, you can see that the amount of height there decreases substantially behind the cutting edge. And I'm sure the orientation's right. It's very hard to tell visually because you've got the helix angle of the cutter. These cutters are formed very much like a tap with a helix angle on the teeth, which in effect is fairly good because you can keep grinding them on the rake face and get more and more life out of the cutter. But as you can see, this is a very fine indicator, by the way. It's in 0.01 millimetre, so that's hundredths of a millimetre. So we'll start off just about on the 30 mark, and I'm not going to centre the indicator because it just all falls to bits on me if I try. So that's 40 hundredths, 100 hundredths, so I would say I've got 0.14 of a millimetre behind it, which is about 1/6 drop over in that length, about a bit over 1/4 of an inch. So that would be about 24 thou per inch drop, which is reasonable. I would like to have more, but then you start to end up with second operations of putting a secondary relief in there. So Graham's going to be over shortly. This morning I'll give him the cutter and say, go and make some chips with it. Maybe he can do a video and show it what it's like. I'll just get a pencil to indicate. I didn't realise this shot would be so good at showing up the gullet, but you can see the gullet that I ground in there. Very close to the original rake angle, but it's giving some clearance for the grinding wheel to run into when I was doing the inner clearance land. So I'll move it a little bit. Yes, you can see that gullet in there quite well. So I'm hoping giving you a few insights into grinding cutters. There's a lot of good information out there, especially in the older books. I've found nothing in newer books. The book on advanced machine work, found written in 1927, although the tool and cutter grinders are overhead belt driven, has a lot of good setups, but there's not very many close-up views like this that shows you what you're trying to achieve. And if you can see what you're trying to achieve, it makes it a lot easier in the setup. Also, you can see the flute grinding I did there. It's slightly less than the rest of the flute to take the damaged portion out. 1 or 2 degrees change there doesn't make much difference in performance, but it means you take a lot less out of the whole flute and get a bit more life out of the cutter. If this cutter should be crashed, it could be cut off there completely. Take ½ an inch or 13 mil off the end of the cutter and just get a shallower cutter that can keep running. And with the cost of these cutters, you want to get the greatest life that you can. Okay, that's all on cutters for today. I'll pass it on to Graham, and now we'll get on to a little bit of shaper work with the axle box horns for the loco. Bye for now. G'day everyone, welcome back to In My Shed. I'm BC. I've got a bit of tool and cutter grinding for you later on. At the moment I'm just putting a bit of stock up in the shaper for a bit of a run. I like working the shaper because I'm old, I suppose. I'm not going to replace a couple of the axle box horns I made earlier. I found out that part of my reasoning was bad workmanship. They weren't square enough and they had about 3 or 4 degrees to the groove inside the axle boxes. So one problem solved, I just have to make a bit more. I couldn't get the size stock I wanted, so I got some 32 mil black, and I'll just machine that down with the shaper. And I'm using a radius finishing tool because I'll only be taking a ½ mil or so cut at a time. And we'll bring you around with the other camera and give you a better look. Now I'm running an external mic, so let me know if you can pick the audio up a little bit better. But I can't put the external mic in the camcorder, and worse off, I can't get close-ups with the GoPro, so it's a bit of a 2-camera effort today. So I'll get the other camera, bring you in closer, and we'll start peeling a bit of steel off. Bye for now. Welcome back again. Just turn off the noise. The whingy, whiny, squealy here in the background is not a politician in the house, it's just the phase changer working away. I brought you in a little bit closer. I'll start the motor up again and put a run across. It's horrible steel, just black mild, but the shaper does a reasonable job. Bit of fairy whee on there, and then away we go. Okay, make some noise and we'll see it running. There we go, she's running now. quick look at that. I've got it reasonably flat in the vise. Although for this operation it's not critical, no need to indicate. You can see the rippled finish that it's getting, and with a finishing tool that's very unusual, but as I said, it's pretty ordinary bloody steel. We'll zoom in and see what we can get. You can see the ripple effect on the surface. I might run it back in the opposite direction on a return pass to see if that makes any difference, but this sort of stuff does not finish up nicely. I like to do this job on the shaper. This is with a piece of M42 cobalt high-speed steel. It just gives a really good life. And I have stoned the cutter, so I'm surprised it's not cutting better than that. But when you're getting all the mill scale and crap off and just bringing something roughly down to size, this is the way I think it should be done. Yeah, because the material is lengthwise in the vise, it's only about a 45-50 second job from one side to the other, and it's on a fairly coarse feed. That's another reason for the bad finish. But for an amateur's workshop, that's not a bad way to go. And soon we'll be off the edge of the material, at which point I'll dial in another 0.4mm. I think that's going to be about 6 now or something like that, and that should clean it up fairly good. Okay, here we go. And we're feeding back the other way now. Another little squirt of fairy weight. That's a bit better. Well, not what we wanted to see. You'll get the laugh at me. I'll put it back in the vise. We'll have another go. Well, there is an old saying, if you do the same thing a second time expecting a different result, you're stupid. Well, let's just see if I'm stupid or not. We've got the politician whining in the background. Let's give it a go. As Shaper Andy would say, let's go for it. The cell factor has been put in motion. So it seems a bit happier this trip. Maybe there wasn't enough fairy whey, I don't know. I think I might turn the fan on before I do the next part. The atmosphere is getting a bit shivered up. We're doing quite a heavy crossfeed. About 0.6mm. Our Dector cut isn't that great. It definitely cuts a bit better in this direction. Gee, that fluid stinks. That's a bit better, the fan starting to disperse it. Okay, I'll roll it over and do the other side. Bye for now. Well, this is it upside down, just fourth our in feed. Little screw it the ferry way, and let's see if this is any different. It's a bit of an unusual vice that comes in from both sides, so it's very different to pulling up against the fixed jaw. I'll wind it across and bring it back again. Almost forgot. That should be it. Let's go for it. Now that's coming up a little better. Zoom in again. It's not as roughly torn as the other side. So obviously there's about a 10-degree lead in the face to the ground on the cutting tool. So it cuts better in one direction. Once I get all the scale off it and it's a better looking piece of steel, I'll probably swap over to a roughing tool and bring it down to size. Well, today's video should satisfy all you crash mongers out there. See a bit of steel thrown out of the vice jaws. Once again, very surprised because I did have it pulled up reasonably tight. Well, maybe an old man's reasonably tight, it's not tight enough. Right, I'll square the other two sides up. If I get enough time to actually mark out and do a bit of cutting today, I'll bring you back for another look. Please like and subscribe, and let me know whether the audio is any better with the previous camera or with this one. Okay, have a good weekend. Bye. Okay guys, back again. There's only a 1.5 mm to take off, so I've decided to keep the finishing cutter in there and just take 2 gentle passes. Now I'm also recording this with a separate audio recorder that I've bought. That little fella's in my top pocket, and we'll see if I can get any better audio out of that. It also has the facility to plug an external mic into it, so I might finish up with this in my pocket and an external mic. We'll just see what the difference is like over the noise of the machine, etc. So I'll start this fellow up. I'll give it another millimetre of cut and send it across. Don't forget, like and subscribe, and as Andy would say, let's go for it. I'll back that up a little bit there, getting a bit brave. I've already sent it across the shop once. I don't want to do it again if I can avoid it. Put a bit of fairy spray on there. Man, this is stinky stuff when it gets hot. That's probably 0.8 to 1 millimetre with the finishing cutter. Well, it's getting a reasonable finish. It'll zoom you in a little bit. That's not a bad photo. I think it's going to finish up with a better surface than when I was taking light cuts. But that was right under the mill scale. You don't know what surface stresses are left there. There's a lot of argy-bargies about what you can and can't do with a shaper. I think a machine like this for a home workshop is very, very useful. And economic. Low in horsepower, doesn't chew a lot of expensive tools up. It gives you a bit of excitement when you throw something out of the vise. So it doesn't take long to get across a bit of material placed lengthwise in the vise. I think it'll beat the pants off a round collar mill. Let's have a look at what the surface is like. Oh, I don't bend around that well anymore. There you go, that's about as close as we can get without losing focus. It's a reasonable finish. Not nice and glossy, but about as good as you can get in this horrible black mould. Okay, we'll see what the audio came out like. Bye for now. Let's hope it's good. I brought you back again because I found this quite impressive. That's a finishing cutter and it's 1mm full depth of cut. And I think it's the smoothest bloody cut for the day. But that's very impressive. Curling the chip. Of course with a roughing cutter you can take 5mm. But for a big radius finishing cutter with that big area of contact, that's impressive. All over a long true round column mill. Still would want to be, it weighs over a ton. Okay fellas, this time it is goodbye.